Gosh, that intro and that music, man, this game is awesome. Alright guys, let's do this. This is Thomas Was Alone Overrated Review. It's part of my never-ending quest to play them all, baby. And right now I've got to tell you, play it! Play this game! I don't care how old this game is. It's like 5, 6, 7 years old. Play this game! It is so much fun. And yeah, great intro to my review, right? To tell you everything I feel about this game beforehand. But let's do it. Sorry, I got lost on the soundtrack, but what can I say, man? The soundtrack is incredible. The best thing about this game is the soundtrack, and that's not a bad thing when you have a soundtrack this good. So the story goes as such, Thomas was alone, hence the name of the title, ha ha ha, so clever, but then he meets a bunch of other people, and together they have to find their way out of the system. What is the system? What does that even mean? Well, I can't spoil anything else because anything else I talk about is basically a spoiler at this point, and after I reviewed Celeste, I kind of spoiled that game a little bit. So I don't want to spoil anything else for you, but let me just say the story is really good to a certain point, and there's a point where you quit Thomas's story. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it continues on later on, and I think that's because the developers made more levels and more story for the fans of this game, but that part is just not quite as good. The story with Thomas is really all I care about and all I'm focused on, so when you get that additional content, while I appreciate the level designs, the story itself just kind of wasn't that great. And then the other negative I need to bring up are the collectibles. They have collectibles in this game, but they give you absolutely no reward unless you're an achievement hunter, and I hate that. I want my collectibles to give me some reward in the game, and a lot of indie titles, not just Thomas Was Alone, but a lot, and I mean a ton of indie titles have collectibles that are ultimately just worthless and just kind of put in there for whatever reason, I guess the achievements or whatever, and I don't like that. Don't do that in your games, guys. Make your collectibles worth something, even if it's an extra clip at the end or artwork, or you can unlock the soundtrack. Give us something other than, hey, here's a meaningless achievement. Achievements are great, but when you take the time to put in collectibles, a better reward is needed. And that's where all the negatives end, baby, because this game is fantastic. You will play as several characters. Every single square you see, by the way, is a character, Thomas being the red square guy, and then everybody else, like Claire, for example, is the giant blue square, or rectangular, or whatever, shapes, geometry. I'm not the best at that. I had the gym teacher in 9th grade. What do you want from me? And you actually alternate as every single character you see on screen in order to solve the puzzles. It's a puzzle platformer, and I love this concept. Every single one of them has their own set of abilities. Claire, for example, can float through water. The skinny, long yellow guy will be able to jump really high. Thomas, well, Thomas is just sort of the standard character. He actually doesn't have any special abilities, but still, though, it's a really cool concept, and the level designs are fantastic. I mean, they were just great from head to toe. And then all along you have a guy who's talking about the entire thing that's going on, why Thomas is going on this adventure, and why all these guys are teaming up, and ultimately by the end of it, it's a really good story, even though, like I said, there's a point where you quit with Tom's story. I'm not saying finish, I'm not saying anything, I'm saying Tom's story is done with, and the game continues on, and that part of the story wasn't quite as good, but still, it was really fun, really engaging, and I really enjoy this. I have played this game actually twice now, and wow, the second time it actually made a lot more sense to me. The first time the story itself was a little bit confusing, but the second time it started to really click, so bear that in mind. If it's confusing, you can also look it up online. People will actually explain the story because it can be a little bit confusing at times. But it's great. The story is wonderful. The soundtrack's wonderful. The art style is just a minimalistic art of just shapes. But man, do I love these shapes. You never would think you can get emotionally attached to shapes because the way they tell it, and every single character has his own thoughts and feelings that you actually connect to shapes. I never thought that was possible until I played this game, and that honestly concludes everything you need to know about Thomas Was Alone. It's a really fun, engaging puzzle platformer, and I loved it. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. There were those little minor things that I had issues with, especially the collectibles. I hate games with pointless collectibles. So let's go ahead now and give this game a letter grade, guys. Thomas Was Alone is an absolute joy, one that I highly recommend. It is definitely one of my favorite indie games that I have played, probably top 50, which sounds pretty high, but I think I've honestly played 200, 400 indie games at this point. So with all that in mind, guys, I give Thomas Was Alone an A-. This concludes my Overrated review, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this very casual, simple review, be sure to click that subscribe button, hit the like button, ring the bell. Gosh, man, YouTube and all of its requirements you have to be quote-unquote successful. But I will see you guys on the next Overrated review that I do. I am Bradley Overrated, out like a trout, and I'm gonna go now get up my iPod and listen to the soundtrack again, because this soundtrack is one of the best. Later.
The world was not to be trusted. It was unstable, and it seemed to Thomas that it could let him down at any moment. He was starting to suspect it might even be doing so on purpose. Paranoia.